Hi everyone.
Hello.
I'm Des.
I'm Victor Falzon.
And we are both field teachers on the Dinja Waħda program, which is BirdLife Malta and the Education Directorate. Welcome to our second Dinja Waħda live event. Who are you listening in? We now have over 360 members in the Dinja Waħda team. And today listening in so far, we have 31 for the English show, and the number is slowly rising. We've just had 60 for the Maltese show.
90.
Oh, 90.
Of course.
You've seen the latest tally. Good. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Last week, we spoke about bird migration, for those of you who are with us. For those who are joining the first time, today we are going to talk about
pollination and pollinators.
There you go. We would like to thank you for all the replies and comments and encourage you to continue doing this and to tell us what you're doing in between programs, whether you've taken up the subject, whether you've done anything in class, whether you're a child or a student. So who are you listening in? You are teachers and students. And we also have some parents joining in. So welcome to everybody. How does the question and answer work? You are not going to see the chat. We will see the chat. In all, there are over 300 people. You can't have people chatting all together and appearing all together. So the live event works like this. You have the chat button, but when you send your question or comment, it won't appear. We have to activate it. So we will do our best to keep up with presenting and activating questions and answering at the same time. Okay, time to start. What do you think?
As you notice, this is the English version. We reacted to what many of you requested when we asked whether you prefer the session in Maltese or in English. We had various answers. Some preferred Maltese with subtitles. Others mentioned English as the main one. So we opted for this way of doing things, with having two separate versions of the same episode. Okay, so the first one was in Maltese. It was just shortly before this version, and now this is the English version. So, and that way, we hope that we have answered the request of most of you. It's the best solution, I guess.
We are recording this event, so you will be able to have the recording after we're done, and we send it to you through the Dinja Waħda platform. Okay, so you're going to see a pause on the screen for a moment until I switch onto our presentation. I'm going to switch off the video now. And I'm switching onto my screen. So I have to share screen, make sure I get it right. Share the screen there. And make sure I send it to you, because last time, there you go. Send live, and open this. And I am now sending live. Okay. There you go. Right. We have a little game for you to start with.
Now, what on earth is that?
Exactly.
Yes, and that's the whole point of this little game, this little mystery game. So before we start with the presentation, actually, we have this picture. We're going to try and do this thing every episode. This is a small section of something from nature, and what we'd like you to do is to write in and tell us what you think it is. Okay, you can use the chat, but of course you won't be seeing the answers and won't be giving the answers of this mystery object, this mystery thing, before the end of the presentation. Okay, towards the end, then we will see how many answers we got, how many right ones, some suggestions, some interesting comments.
And who was the first in with the right answer? So you have a minute. We're giving you a minute right now to type in. Don't get confused. You will not see your suggestions, your answers on the chat, but we will be seeing them and monitoring what you're saying. So you're looking at the screen now and you're starting with our little game. All right, don't think too long about it, but be observant. Okay, right. On with the show. Do tell us if you are, okay, let's see if there are any answers, Vic, so that we can... All right, good. So that tells me that you're seeing the screen. I just needed a bit of technical information there to make sure that we're not going wrong. Okay. So we can start with our feature. As we said at the beginning, our feature today is about pollination and pollinators. Here goes. On the screen, you can see a box of cereal. At least that's what it says on the box. There's no other information there. It's a grey box, little shadow.
It's 500 grams.
It's 500 grams, that's half a kilo. But that's all I know about it. Now, if you had to choose between this box and that box of cereal, what would you choose?
Well, I think I would go for the picture on the right. For some reason, it's attracting my attention more than the other one.
And why is that?
I wonder. It's quite obvious, isn't it? I think you guessed. It's all that color. It's all that color and movement. Even the packet isn't standing straight up, but it's all those colors, those blues, those reds, those orange, those yellow, that white.
Pink.
Okay. There's a little pink, yes, a little splash at the back. Exactly. The other colors weren't enough.
So you know what this is telling me? This is telling me that someone knows how I think, what I like, what draws my attention, and they are controlling me. They're like tricking me into choosing the product they want me to choose.
Yes, it's strange because both packets contain the same thing, exactly the same cereal. But the one on the right looks, for some reason, looks more delicious. It attracts the eye. And if I were in a supermarket, I think I know which one I'd go for. Without knowing it, I'd go for the colorful one because colors attract our attention.
And you know what? This is happening in nature to millions of, let me call them victims at the moment. A lot of animals are getting tricked into choosing what another living thing wants them to do by knowing what they want. Take a look at these two plants over here. Let me introduce them. They are plants and they make pollen. Pollen is a special dust. You may have heard about it. It's usually yellow, but it can be in different colors. Plants make this and they pass it on to each other so that they can make seeds. But do you see something funny in this cartoon?
Yeah, it looks very funny there because I've never seen plants walking. Those plants look like they have legs and they're moving about. That's very strange. Okay, they have eyes and they have arms and a mouth. Yes. Okay, so that's also strange. But sometimes you can imagine arms on a plant, but legs.
There you go.
That's really strange, isn't it?
And we don't see this in nature, do we? No, we don't, because plants have no legs. And they can't walk. Now that's a problem. How can a plant take its pollen to another plant if it doesn't have any legs? Well, obviously, it needs help. It needs someone to carry the pollen for it.
Now who could help plants to carry pollen? And why would they do it? I mean, we wouldn't do anything for nothing. Okay, right there. So plants to carry all that pollen, all those millions of tiny dust, they need lots and lots and lots of helpers. And these lots and lots of helpers have to also be able to move around a lot.
Perfect solution. What? There is something, there are millions of it, and they can get around very quickly because they can fly. Did you get what it is?
Is it birds, you think? No.
Not enough birds.
There's not quite enough birds.
So what could it be?
Yeah. Ta-da!
Insects.
Insects, what a load of insects.
There are millions of insects all over the world, and so many of them can fly. Perfect. Now, all that is needed is a little trick to make them come to the plant. Take its pollen and carry it over to another plant. Now, remember the cereal box?
Remember the one we chose? The one our eyes always fall on? The one on the left looks rather suspicious.
Yes, it doesn't it? Like a spy.
Yes.
And
it's more like a piece of wood.
Could be.
Right.
Do you remember why we chose the one on the right? What was it?
Color.
It was color, and plants know it. Look at all these beautiful flowers. These are all made by plants because they know that insects will see the color and come.
Wow.
The insect will fly down straight to where it sees that color.
So plants make all this beautiful color
and shape
and size for insects.
Absolutely.
Not for us.
Absolutely. Look at this bumblebee. I just love bumblebees. Don't you?
They have such nice colors. They're hairy, they're fluffy. You'd like to hug them.
Yes, and kiss them. But I wouldn't advise it, just in case anyone's listening in and takes that literally.
But they're not dangerous animals at all. They do have a sting, but they only use it in self-defense. So if you're not going to disturb this animal, you're not going to try to swat it away or flap it or flap your hands in front of it. It's not going to bother you at all. It's just interested in what it finds in that flower.
Now, what is it finding in that flower? Well, pollen, of course. This is where the plant will put its pollen, because remember we said the plant needs something to carry it, to carry the pollen from another plant to a plant. So that's where it puts it. Put it in the flower where you know the insect is going to come down.
But does the insect get anything out of this thing, out of landing on the flower? Is it just being tricked into landing there and that's it?
Absolutely not. Insects love pollen. They eat it. And what's more, they also take it home to their young. They feed it to the young. Pollen is a very nutritious food. It has a lot of good stuff inside it.
Especially for the young insects who are growing in the nest.
Yes, but that could be a problem, because if the insects take all the pollen, then there's no point in calling insects to take your pollen to another plant, right? But plants have another trick. And you can see the trick over here. Just look at the middle of this flower. Can you see all those little white dots stuck to the pink petals? That's pollen. And pollen is sticky. It's coming off the middle parts, which are sticking out. And it's very sticky.
It's also very tiny. That's an ant in the middle of that flower there,
and a very small ant too.
And a small ant. Now the pollen is really, really small. So it's tiny, it's light, very, very light, and very sticky. Well, it's dust after all. It's a kind of dust.
And the plant needs to make sure that this sticky pollen will stick on the insects. But here's the cool thing. Insects are hairy. Just look at this digger bee on the right. How hairy it is, all over its body, its legs, even its wings are hairy, although you can't see them like the body.
Its antennae aren't hairy though. What long antennae it has.
No, that tells me that it's not a good thing for pollen to stick to your antennae, if you're this kind of bee at least.
Well, it keeps them out of the way.
Definitely. So between these two tricks, you're going to definitely get your pollen carried to another flower. Look at this Carpenter bee. How full of pollen it is.
Is that a yellow bee?
Nope, it's not yellow. It's black underneath, but it's been to a lot of flowers that have yellow pollen, and it's so full.
So all that yellow stuff on it is pollen stuck to its wings and to its back and to its face and to its legs.
Yes.
Poor bee. It doesn't even know it's happening, I think.
Exactly. The plant is tricking it into doing exactly what it wants.
Yes,
because the plants know. Yes, very strange. We'll have a look at this one later. Anyhow, so, all right, so it sticks to the bee. But if it sticks to the insect, again, the insect is going to carry it home and eat it slowly, like having a snack in your bedroom or something. So what does the plant get out of it? Again, some pollen falls off. Let's take a look at a bit of an animation. So there you've got the flower, and here comes a bee full of pollen. The bee has stuck to it because it's sticky. Sorry, the pollen has stuck to the bee because it's hairy and the pollen is sticky. And it lands and it eats more pollen from the new flower. But can you see that as it eats, some of the pollen on it is rubbing off and staying on the new flower? By the time it leaves, it's full of pollen from the new flower, but it has left some pollen from the other plant it visited before on this new flower.
That bee looks happy. Look, its mouth is full, so its head is full of pollen, and it just left the flower. But without knowing, it's just done a big service to that flower, to that plant.
And the plant has got it to do exactly what it wants it to do. Here it is in reality. So we call this pollination. And there's a pollinator coming and doing the service. The service is pollination. Look at it.
Wow, that's a bee very busy there.
Of course it's busy because this particular flower has a lot of tiny flowers and they're all full of pollen.
I can see those pollen baskets there on its back legs. Can you see that yellow stuff there stuck to its legs?
Because honeybees are so good at collecting pollen, they even have baskets on their legs.
Yeah, they have special hairy parts on the legs, and they stuff the pollen there, and off they go back to the hive. Wow.
Leaving some pollen behind on another plant.
Always leaving some pollen behind.
Now, what happens? So the pollen starts going into the flower. This is the pollen that was left by the bee or another insect, and it starts going inside the flower. The flower's job is done, so it can drop its petal. It starts to wither, to shrink, to lose its color, and the petals fall off. They're not needed anymore. Why? Because they don't need to call any more insects with their color and their shape. Now, do you notice that the middle part of the flower is getting bigger? And you notice things that there's like lumps. Why? Because seeds are happening. And this is pollination. The plant gets pollen from another plant into its flower. The flower starts changing because inside the seeds are happening. Without the pollen from another flower, the seeds would not happen.
And that's how they solve the problem. That they can't move from one place to the other.
Voila.
They still got their pollen. Wow.
And that's not all. To make sure that the insects come and carry their precious pollen, they have another trick up their sleeve. They offer insects a drink, and that drink is called nectar. It's a delicious mix of water and sugar. And it fills the insect with energy, like an energy drink, you know. Energy drinks have a lot of sugar in them, or glucose. And this is exactly the same thing. So a plant has given the color, it's given the pollen, and it's also given a drink. Wow, quite a restaurant there. Snack and drink.
Look at that tongue. It's a good thing the tongue is long, because it wouldn't have reached the nectar there, because the flower has a bit of a trumpet-like shape. It's narrow and deep.
There it is again, see? Can you see that tongue? The butterflies have a long straw-like tongue. They can twist it and poke it right into the middle of a flower.
I thought it was a black hair.
No, absolutely not.
That's the butterfly's tongue.
And look at the tips of the butterfly's legs. Can you see them purple, the same color as the flower? Do you know why?
I think that could be pollen.
And so it is.
Coming off the flower onto the legs of the butterfly. The butterfly is busy drinking there, doesn't know that it's carrying off some of the pollen from that flower. And when it visits the next flower, the pollen will fall off and stick to the other flower. Wonderful.
Now, that's not enough. There's another
Really?
trick. There's another trick. And it's called scent. S-C-E-N-T. Scent. Pollen smells nice too, and it gives most flowers a really nice smell. Insects can smell this from very far away. So just in case the insect hasn't seen the color, they will definitely smell the scent of that pollen. You can smell something from more far away, further away than you can see it. And insects will definitely come to the flowers with all these tricks. So, we've talked about the plant and how it gets insects towards it. But who are these pollinators? We haven't talked much about them. Let's start with the ones that most people know about, bees. There are many kinds of bees. Did you know that? It's not just honeybees, you know.
Oh, honeybees are the most famous, of course, because we get that delicious honey from their hive. But there are many, many other kinds of bees.
None of these are honeybees, in fact.
These guys don't make honey at all.
But they are very good pollinators as well.
Very good. Look at the one in the middle, its legs is full. They're all hairy, if you notice. They're all hairy, so they're all going to pick off some pollen from the flowers there.
And that's how you recognize bees. They're usually fluffy, hairy, and roundish. There are other pollinators. For example, these bees. I'm not sure whether you can hear me if I switch off the sound. Yes, I think you can. Just tell us if you cannot hear me. I need you to tell me on the chat, please. There was a slide there with the sound which I had to switch off. But just tell me if you can hear me. Right, so these are beetles. And beetles are also pollinators. They're very, very hairy. You can see the hair at the bottom of the animal.
Now, the back is quite shiny, actually, but they also have hairs on their backs. Yeah.
You're quite right. In fact, this is how I recognize beetles. They are shiny. And they also have more colors, usually, than most bees.
The one on top there is a nice bright green metallic.
It's a beautiful emerald green, yes.
Yeah, the one in the middle too, they're called flower beetles, these guys.
Yes, and okay, you can hear me, thank you. Thank you for that answer, yes. So the beetle has different shapes as well from bees. They're not all round and fluffy, they're long and thin and round, generally shiny, and they have more colors. And they're also good pollinators. And of course, an animal that many people are afraid of, the wasp. Look how slim that wasp is. Oh, look at that waist.
I wish I had a waist like that. Well, maybe
so
not.
Do I. You, come on, that's a lady. The wasp is very easy to tell because it's black and yellow and it tends to be slim, not quite as fluffy as a bee. Now, many people are afraid of wasps, but really, all a wasp wants to do is take nectar and pollen. In fact, wasps even get tired. Look at this one on the right. It's taking a break, it's taking a rest. So really, they're no different from us. And sometimes if a wasp comes near you because you have an ice cream, for example, it's because of the sugar again. Be careful, don't just wave your hand because they'll be afraid. And that's when you get stung by animals. Just give them time to notice that an ice cream is an ice cream and not a flower. And they'll move off pretty quickly. Butterflies are pollinators too. We talked about how the butterfly sticks its long tongue into a flower. Look at the hair, even the face is hairy between the eyes. And the wings picking up all that pollen. So butterflies are pollinator too. That's one butterfly. There it is again, with the tongue dipped right into the middle of the flower. I wish I had a long tongue like that, especially when there's something at the bottom of a jar and I can't get it.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be cool, huh?
Yeah, I feel that way as well.
Mm. And you know the cool thing about the tongue like that? You can actually roll it up when you don't need it. Look at that, like a portable tongue, like, I don't know, some portable gadget, a tool that you're carrying with you. Just roll it up. And there are many kinds of butterflies, and these are very easy to tell. Butterflies open their wings when they settle, and their wings are full of wonderful flowers. Everybody likes butterflies because they're so pretty, aren't they? But they're pollinators, and they're being tricked into coming to the flowers just like the other pollinators. And our last group, that is actually a fly. It's not a bee. It may look like a bee, but it's not. And you know how I can tell? Look at its face. Do you see those long antennae that we saw on the bees? Those two long kind of sticks? That's how they feel, right? Fly antennae are very short. Look at these flies. There's another thing that's really obvious that you can really see. Big eyes. Flies have really big eyes. There are more flies than just the ones that come in our homes, you know, the ones that bother us because they come to our sweat and you want them out. There's so many kinds of flies, and they are all very good pollinators. Look at the one in the middle. It's got pollen on its face, on its legs. Thankfully, not on its eyes. Imagine that.
There are some with hair on their eyes as well.
Oh,
That's
no.
strange. Yeah,
Imagine having pollen in front of your eyes and you can't see.
Yeah. They have to wipe them off. In fact, they use their legs, their front legs, to wipe their eyes.
I see. I've seen that happening. So that's why, of course.
Yes.
And then probably eat it, I suppose.
Maybe, yes.
Why not? Wipe it off and eat it.
If they eat pollen, yes.
Oh, sounds like licking your face, you know?
Some prefer nectar, some prefer pollen.
Cool. Right. Okay. So for those who were with us last week, we talked about migration. And do you remember that we said birds find most insects in spring when there are lots of flowers? Well, now you know why. Insects and plants need each other. In winter, most plants do not make flowers, so there's no food for insects, and they have nothing to pollinate. In fact, plants and insects work so well together that some plants, like this borage, this pretty blue flower, like insects, some insects more than others. Look at this one. Borage has those white bits. Can you see them? Let me show you a drawing of them. Can you see this bee on that white bit? The borage has a trick that the honeybee knows about. If it presses the white bit,
it's like a pedal, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's like a pedal.
A pedal that opens the middle. And that's where the bee will find the nectar and the pollen. And the borage flower chooses this bee. I'm not sure why, but it must be that this bee is very good at pollinating the borage. So it knows the trick.
I wonder what that word is at the bottom. It looks like yummy.
That's it. You can read upside down. Well done.
Okay, that's because I had to hang upside down.
Oh, you turned upside down. I see. He's doing handstand. Never mind. Now here's another trick. Look at this carpenter bee full of pollen. It's taking pollen from this very strange flower. If you can see, the flower has two bits. A bottom bit, like a platform, a floor, and a top bit, like a cover. Now, this is quite a big flower, so it needs a heavy bee, like the carpenter bee, to be able to push the floor down and open up so it can get inside. A lighter bee will not manage this, can't do this. Now, what's in it for the flower? The flower has the pollen on the underside of the cap, the top bit. So when the carpenter bee goes in, it will rub its back and wings against the underside of the cap, and it will get full of pollen. This is a smaller flower that works the same way. It's a snapdragon. And there you can see a honeybee pushing the bottom floor. The top part rubs against her, and her back is full of pollen, and she flies off.
Wow.
Now, of course, plants have learned these tricks over millions of years. The first plants didn't have this trick. They used to use the wind to carry the pollen to each other. But this wasn't a very good way, because a lot of pollen is wasted. So they started tricking insects instead.
That rabbit isn't very happy about it.
Clearly, he's not a pollinator.
No. He gets pollen up his nose, I guess.
I suppose so. And that's because the wind is carrying it wherever it wants to, like those leaves, and a lot of pollen is getting wasted.
Yeah, that's why people get hay fever, actually. They get pollen. Pollen
right.
is so fine, such fine dust. It gets up people's noses. And some people who are more sensitive to it than others, they get very uncomfortable for a time. That's why they don't go out in spring. It's quite a pity, because you miss all that beauty and all that.
Indeed it is.
Yes.
Indeed it is. These are some of them. Look, what do you notice about these? Do you think they are pollinated by insects?
Doesn't look very interesting as far as color is concerned, is it?
Not just color. What do you think?
They're mostly green. Well, the one on the right is a bit yellow. It's tall. It's long. There are no petals. Probably there is no scent either, is it? No.
Wind pollinated flowers don't need a scent. They don't need that perfume.
Because they don't need to attract insects. These guys get around by just throwing all their pollen in the wind.
Exactly. And they still exist today as well.
Oh, yes. These are modern pictures here, not from the dinosaurs' age.
Now, before you go, we're going to tell you the results of the earlier photo. So that was our feature on pollinators and pollination. This was the photo we showed you at the beginning. Tell us the results, Vic.
Well, we've had quite a lot of various answers. We've had people saying praying mantis, lizards, the eyes of a bee, snakes, frog, beetles, seeds, even pollen, even the inside of a flower, and even eggs.
Oh, how nice!
But there were quite a few correct answers too.
Okay.
So what was the answer? What do you think this object was?
I'm going to show you. There. Can you see? It was a bit of the skin of a chameleon.
So it's not eggs, and it's not. But we got who said lizard and who said snake. Got very close, because those are reptiles, and chameleon, of course, is a reptile, and its skin is usually scaly like that. So some people got also close as well.
Close as well.
Apart from those who got it right.
Lovely. Okay, good.
Some people even saw the ants up there.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
Notice up there and the upper left there.
There. I think I can show you with my cursor here. See, there's an ant. That's his head.
That's an ant being squashed.
This is his body.
Being squashed by the chameleon on the branch there. Or maybe not.
Oh, where is it? Where? Oh, so it's right there. See, there's the ant over there. Oh, wow.
It got caught in the picture. Right, well done. We're going to do this every week. Okay, so next week we'll have another mystery animal. Okay.
Always from nature.
Okay. Okay, before we leave.
Before we leave, yes.
We have something that you can think about as well. There is no right or wrong answer here. So here we have a picture and of a bug here, of a beetle. It's we saw this before. Is done with a shiny back, and this one is really hugging the flower, like not wanting anyone to get at it at all.
Okay, no more clues.
Okay, so what would you think this beetle would be saying if it could speak, if it could talk, it could say something to all around? What would it be saying? we'll leave this in your hands. Okay, now you start giving some, think about it, and you can send us the answers. And next week we will we will show you some of the answers, some of the best answers, the most maybe funny or interesting or imaginative answers that you came up with.
So be creative, you can be funny, you can be serious if you're serious.
Don't be rude.
Definitely never be rude. And you can either send us your answers straight by email. I will show the email. I'm giving you time to look at that picture a bit more. Or you can send them to your teachers, and your teachers will choose answers that they like best and send them to us themselves. I'm going to share the email. All right, now. So that's our email. We've already sent you the link on this email, dinja@birdlifemalta.org. We love when you tell us what you've been doing. Please continue to share with us your thoughts. If there are any subjects, always about nature in Malta, because we want people to love our nature like we do. And I think that's it from us. So it's...
Yes, thank you for being with us. That's me, Victor.
And me, Des. And
signing off.
Bye.
Bye. See you next week.